Hey guys, on today's show, I've got Brandon Griffin, who's got an amazing story I can't wait to share with you. Brandon was a painter for about 10 years working for other companies before he finally had the guts to start his own company. So in 2019, he did $300,000 in business in his first year. He made a little over $100,000 in profit, but it was chaos. He was working 65 plus hours a week, and he knew that wasn't going to be sustainable with his new son on the way. And 4 years later, in 2023, Brandon did $3 million in business, made nearly $700,000 in profit, took family vacations. He's working 10 to 15 hours a week. He's an incredible guy, an amazing human being, a great business owner, and his story is truly inspiring. So I hope you enjoy the episode. Let's jump in. This is the Painting Business Pro Show, where we share inspiring stories from people who are just like you, who have created extraordinary results in their business and their life. We'll take the mystery out of it and show you behind the scenes exactly how these results happen. There's a simple process and a roadmap to follow to create life-changing success in business. You are capable of more than you realize. So listen in, discover what's possible, and let's unlock your potential. Let's go. So Brandon, I appreciate you, dude. I'm stoked to dig into all this. Let's start from how you got into the painting business and a little bit about your background.
Well, thanks so much for the kind words, Eric. It means a lot. And, I've been in the painting industry a long time. My background is primarily in the trades. So most of my life, right out of high school, I got a summer job painting an exterior of a home. I sucked the first time I did it, but I worked with some good old guys and, it was fun. It was outside. And I sucked at first, but the guys were really patient with me and I made some pretty decent cash. So, I was like, oh, cool. This is a cool way. I know I can make some money. So I did painting for a while. I went to college for a bit for mechanical drafting engineering, but I didn't pursue it. I wasn't really passionate about it. CAD classes can be a drag. So I went back to painting, and I stuck with that for a while. Actually got pretty good at it. I worked for multiple companies, mostly residential, but I worked for a couple commercial companies as well. A lot of people in my family had background on the trades. My uncle had a construction business, so periodically I'd work with him. Paint houses for him, even did other things like framing and roofing, but it was mostly painting for me. But when I worked for other companies, particularly in the area where I'm from, Raleigh, North Carolina, I saw a lot of problems. I saw employees not being treated right. The one company I worked with in particularly one year, I was really young. They built me up like, I was going to be there a while. And then right before Christmas, I remember they did like this really big layoff. And I was one of the people that got laid off. And it was just it was a letdown. And I saw a lot of different things like that, just a lack of integrity to employees and also to customers, being promised the world. And then when a job starts, if things went wrong, even all the way up to the boss or the higher level people, there was just excuses made, or just a lack of responsibility, lack of caring. So,
How old were you, Brandon, when around this time, just how far out of school were you? How long had you been painting before you kind of got to that point where you were considered, how old were you and what was the timeline from when you started painting?
Sure. Right out of high school. So about 17, 18 years old, I got that first summer job. And like I said, I sucked at it, but I enjoyed it. It was fun to work with my hands and, it was a good way to make some cash. And shortly after that, I went to college for a bit and realized I didn't like what I was pursuing. So I went back to painting for a while. So I guess, by the time I was 21, something like that, 22, I was painting again. I did have another break. I painted for, I'd say about 5 to 7 years. Hard to think back that far. I'm 43 now. So, but I had a small break and all that where I did a little bit of sales. I got this job with a company that traveled and did sales, sold electronic equipment to businesses and stuff. And I was pretty good at that. So, but that company kind of broke down and it didn't last. So I went back to the trades, went back to painting. And I did that for most of the next 10 plus years. So I'd say I was about in my late 30s when, that's when I had my son on the
You're
way.
paying for other people for
Yeah.
you were paying for other people for about 10
Yeah.
years?
Painting for other people for most of those years, from out of high school until, late 30s. I did work with my dad for a bit. He had his own business, and I would do all the paint jobs. So it was a lot of, do it myself with my own hands. I got really good at painting, but it was a lot of hard work, and as I got older, and my son was, my, my son in 2018, my wife was pregnant with my son, and I just, I didn't want to keep painting. It was long days, always tired. It always felt burnt out, working long days like that. And, I started my own business. When me and my wife were pregnant with my son, I started my own business in 2018 because I saw all those problems in the trades. And it was just, to me, it felt like even if I got a good job somewhere, it might not last. So I wanted to start my own business, and my wife was like, you should go for it. Like, you can definitely do it. So in
What
2018,
I'm curious, Brandon, real
yeah,
quick before we go, how long were you I didn't know you were I just found out for the first
yeah,
time that you were actually painting for like over 10 years before you started your company. How many
yeah.
years were you thinking about starting your business before you started your business?
Um, at least a few. I mean, it was always like a dream, right? It was always like something that I imagined or that I dreamed I wanted to happen. But I just never saw the possibility of, like, it seemed nice seeing people run their own businesses in big companies. It just seemed like a fantasy to me. Um, didn't seem like something at the time that I could do. I didn't have a background in business. Didn't have a background in, anything financial or accounting or any of that stuff. So to me at the time back then, it didn't seem possible. But I got lucky, married a very smart woman. She had a background in law, and she eventually became a realtor. But she's just smart. She's a smart woman, and she believed in me and my abilities. And so I credit a lot of that first belief that it was sort of possible to her in that time. So in 2018 is when I started our company, and I had a
Did she
kid on the
bring
way.
that up as an idea to start, or did you bring it up? Were you like I'm trying to understand how you went from
Yeah,
10 years of painting and
yeah,
then something shifted where you went from business, my own business is a fantasy, to like, I might actually do this thing.
yeah,
Like, what was it your son? Like, you're expecting your son that
yeah,
prompted that, or like what?
yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was.
I didn't mention this to you, Eric, but I will say I was married one time before. So I have a daughter. She's 17. She's my ex-wife. So she was getting older. Me and her are very close. She was getting older. Yeah, my kids definitely fueled me for that. Being married to my wife, I had a son on the way. To me, it felt like a miracle. I prayed, if I could have a son, that'd be incredible. That was like a dream. So we found out we were pregnant. It was a boy. It did light a fire in me. It was like, I want a good future for my son. Also want to be able to provide for my daughter. She was getting ready to, she was going through high school. I could foresee she was going to be going to college. I wanted to be able to help her with that. So yeah, a lot of it was the motivation from my family and just wanting a better life for myself and my family.
What gave you, and then your wife's encouragement is what kind of gave you the guts to just like go for it.
The guts to entertain it, to start to get curious about it. And
Start
yeah.
there.
And then, so I did, I was like, okay, well, so I'd already been doing some side jobs. I should mention that, like, I was doing some side jobs for friends or, relatives, whatever, very small stuff. She was like, you've been doing okay with these side jobs. You should probably just start your own business. So that was what I did in 2018. And I saw all these problems in the painting industry. And so I thought, if I did start a business, I would want it to be a business that does things the right way. But I didn't see how that was possible at all at that time. So in 2018, started the business, and that year for 2018 and 2019 was pretty crazy. I did hire. I had a small team around me, and I remember I was like trying to micromanage everything and everyone. I mean, a normal week was probably anywhere from 55 to 65 plus hours a week. And this was me also painting. So climbing up and down
Dude,
ladders.
probably even more than that. I
Probably,
mean, maybe
yeah,
even more than that. I remember. I
probably.
mean, shoot,
Yeah.
if you're like up at 6 in the morning, heading to the paint store to get to your job site by 8, your day started at 6. Like all of a sudden, you're doing 6 to 7 on some days. Like you got 12, 13-hour days in there.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
know that. I know how that goes. Like when it's crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I didn't even consider like the things I do in the morning or little anything admin or at night admin or finishing estimates. Yeah. If you take all that into consideration, way more than 65 hours a week. So yeah, to be fair, you're right
Isn't
about
that
that.
funny? Yeah, you start counting like, oh no, work is just when I'm gone. That doesn't
Just when
count
I'm
all
on the
the
ladder.
other stuff I'm doing.
Yeah.
All right.
So I was doing all the estimates at the time, doing all the project management, all the little admin things, the scheduling, and plus a ton of painting. Um, and it felt like complete chaos. It felt stressed. It felt I didn't have a lot of quality time with my family, with my wife. Um, I was always tired. I was getting older. I mean, I was pushing close to 40, my late 30s, and I'd been doing this for a long time. I felt burnt out a lot, but I had some good people in my life. I've had a spiritual advisor in my life since 2017. So a year before that, if I run just a little bit, um, I decided to get sober. So I'd stopped drinking. I didn't see a possibility for that at the time. Um, but that was one of the biggest shifts in my life when that happened. And so I had that going for me, which was life changing. But at the same time, like I was just working myself to death. I didn't have a lot of free time. Certainly didn't have the financial freedom or the freedom of time with my family. And I think I had just like this fear around success, or fear around having a lot of money. Had judgments. It was like It was almost self sabotage. Self sabotage. I had this deep seed in me that like rich people aren't generous, or I won't be associated with working hard, stuff like that. And I prided myself on being a hard worker. So I had a lot of
Were
these
you
limiting
aware
beliefs. Huh?
were you aware of that at the time?
No, not at all.
Okay, so that's something you saw about yourself later in hindsight,
100%.
you know. Interesting.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but I wanted to be successful in life and in business. I wanted that so bad. I wanted that for my family, for my kids, for myself, for the relationship with my wife. Getting sober helped me to realize like it's not just about me either. It's about helping other people. Um, and at the time, I just didn't see how all that was possible, working that much and trying to do everything myself. I had a lot of fears around it. Even if I wanted to grow this business, like, how am I going to do that? I don't trust anybody to do his work as good as myself. I had a small team around me, and it took me a while to even get those people around me working on my small team that I thought were good enough or trusted. I just had these basically lies in my head that there's just no good help out there. I can't find painters they're not gonna be sloppy and trash a client's house or ruin my reputation, right? Because that's what I thought it was
And
all
guys,
about.
spoiler alert, Brandon does like millions a year now and has like, I think you still have a perfect 5.0 with like hundreds of reviews now, right?
Yeah, yeah. Perfect
spoiler,
time.
spoiler alert.
Ain't
Yeah,
that
talk about
something?
lies in your head. Yeah.
Yeah. So at the time in 2018, I just thought having a big company was like, it was awesome and I wanted it, but it was a fantasy. I'd never be able to scale a business. Won't be able to find and hire the right people. Um, and so I just had all this fear around it.
Just out of
And
curiosity, what was your view of people who did have a big company? Because you had to justify that somehow, right?
yeah,
Because if you're like you can't if you scale a big company, you're gonna have crappy workers, then what
sure.
how did you explain bigger companies and why you wouldn't be able to do that? Do you
Yeah.
remember?
Some people were, they had a background in business. So there was that, like my background felt like, maybe I couldn't
I
learn the
can't do
ways.
it.
Huh?
I can't do it. They
Right.
did it, but I can't do it. I don't
They,
know how to do that. They know something I don't know.
they know something I don't know. So it was just like a lot of intimidation, fear, not knowing. And then there was also image that it might carry. Like, I felt like I had this image of like, I've done great work and I'm a hard worker and I've got this good little reputation I'm starting to build with that business. And if I mess this up and try to give this to the wrong people or hire the wrong people, they're going to ruin my reputation. They'll never be able to do it as good as me. So those were some of the thoughts that I had that were of why I wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, got it. When did you start it in 2018? That was like you started mid of 2018, beginning of the year.
It was actually towards the end of 2018. Yeah.
Okay, so 2019 is your first full year in business. So what was the outcomes of the first full year in
Yeah.
business?
So again, doing all the estimates, all the project management, all the admin, and a lot of the painting. In 2019, we did a little over 300, I think like 318K. And the profit was over 100, maybe 125, 130, something like that. I didn't have great systems at the time, but I did have QuickBooks. So I was able to keep some things. Um, and but it was just chaos. It was so much hard work, and I just didn't have quality relationships with my wife, with my family. Didn't have a lot of free time to, I mean, forget about like trying to pursue hobbies, or other things that I really wanted to do, but it just felt like I didn't have time for that.
Right. Yeah, just survival mode from one job to the next job to the next job. All
I
right, so that
had
was the darkest, just before the dawn. That was the rough year. The first, I mean, still great. I mean, to do
yeah
300K, make 130 grand first full year of business isn't bad. I know there's a lot of people who get stuck in that
yeah
for a long time.
yeah.
Fortunately, that wasn't you. So yeah, walk us through, kind of the next year and the couple changes that really unlocked things for you the next year.
Again, like I said, I was just in a place where I felt like I was just I, I had this thought in my mind. I thought like 20 years from now, if I keep going the way that I am, I'm not going to have the life that I want to to provide for my kids. Um, I don't want to keep doing painting forever. Like I can't keep doing this forever. So I knew something had to change, and I just had this. It's like to me, I heard the saying, and I relate to this so much. The pain of staying the same has to be worse than the pain to change. And for me, I was sick and tired of feeling that way. I was sick and tired of being stuck. So it was like it was like a mindset shift. And just like when I got sober, I was like, you know what? Like if I believe it and I want it bad with some work, it's possible. So I made a decision to take some different actions and get some help running my business. And one of the first things that I did when I got help and I got coaching from someone who had tons more experience than me and had done this before, made a lot of the mistakes, that I wanted to avoid and some of those pitfalls. It's like, man, you should switch to subcontractors. You should, hire subcontractors. And I had to really like talk through some of those fears that I had, like the worries of like someone not being able to do it as good as me. Somebody's just going to ruin my reputation. I had to say to myself, well, am I as worried about that as I am about the future that I'm not going to be able to provide for myself and my family? And to me, the risk was just a no brainer. I was like, well, if it worked for him and it's worked for a lot of other people, then I'm going to do it. I'm going to try it. And, that's when I signed up for a program and I got coaching and, yeah, I mean, subcontracting was the first major shift, learning how to do it the right now. There's a right way to do subcontracting. I don't just recommend just hire just any subcontractor and just go for it. There's a process for it. We have the first three jobs with subcontractors, and there's job site checklists, and there's things you need to make sure in order. But it's not as intimidating, as scary as I thought it would be. And it turns
Yeah, you're
out,
not you're not just sending someone out there and crossing your fingers. There's a
right,
process. Just
right,
like there's a process if you're bringing on an employee or you're bringing on a sales rep. Like, yeah, you got control of your business still. I
yeah,
want to just underline before you move on. I wanted to underline the power of something you said, where it was like, okay, if I don't change, then the way it's going right now, it's going to keep going this way. And that's certain.
Yeah.
Or there's this change I can make that could change everything. But then there's also like a risk, but the risk wasn't worth. It's like, do I take that risk or do I like just keep everything the same? And it's powerful that I think a lot of people don't think through that. It's like, what am I really afraid of here?
Yeah.
And there's a risk in not taking action too, which I think is what you're pointing at. Is the risk of inaction is it's a very high risk. It's almost certain that it will continue to be the same. And if you're not happy with the way it is, then you gotta do something else. And there will be a risk with that too. There is
Yeah.
no there is no option that has no risk.
100%. 100%. Most things I've experienced in life that come with a lot of reward usually have come with some risk. Um, and I just had to say to myself, the way I am now um, is more painful to me than the action I need to take to change, and it's worth the risk. So I just had to have a breakthrough. It's a mindset and just overcoming some of those limiting beliefs. And one of the first things with that was switching to subcontractors. So some of the worries that I had, some of those beliefs, and what I discovered was that there's a lot of great subcontractors out there. Like, these guys have their businesses, these guys have families to provide for. These guys are passionate about work the way I was. Now that's not to say there's bad subs out there. There probably are, but there's a lot of great subcontractors out there. And so I just had to change the way that I looked at that and the way that I saw that. And what that did was give me so much leverage to free up my time and to produce more jobs. So
Yeah,
that
can
was
you say more? Can you say more, Brandon, about why was that such an real quick? Why don't you just share how the business changed? So you did 318,000, 120K in profit, working your tail off in 2019. What was the numbers in 2020
yeah.
once you
The
made this
very next
change? So we
year.
can see.
So
Yeah.
this is no BS. The very next year in 2020, with the subcontractors was the big one, and there was some other changes which we can get into. But in 2020, we did 1.16 million, and we made 330K in net profit. So I had made in 1 year, I made more net profit than I did in gross the year before.
Yeah. Yeah. Really. I mean, and I wanted to share that so there's some context on whoa, whoa, whoa. Now, if you can take a step back and say, okay, Brandon, you said subcontractors was like the biggest change that made a difference. So how? Right? How did subcontractors make such an impact? What
Well,
were the yeah, how did that
yeah.
change things for you?
Well, you can only personally paint so many jobs yourself, and you can only control and micromanage so many things yourself. Um, So with the right processes to onboard the right subcontractors and the right way to manage those, while at the same time being able to do more sales, because if I'm not painting all the time and I've got great guys out there painting for me, I'm able to have more time, more leverage to go do more sales. And so I was able to sell more. And when you're able to sell more, you're able to produce more. And if I've got great subcontracting teams in place, they're going to be able to paint more, and we're going to be able to generate more revenue. So that was one of the first major big changes with how subcontractors helped me to change and increase revenue, and not just more revenue, but more freedom of my time, more happiness. I mean, the changes were already starting to take place in a major way just in the next year.
How much time would you spend on a job site in 2019 for a single job? And then how much time would you spend on a job site in 2020?
Um, well, in 2019, I was pretty much at all the jobs all day, all day. So
Oh
because I
yeah,
was
you're
still,
you're doing one job at a time. You're there all day. So your typical job took you what, 4 days, 5 days, 3 days?
yeah, I mean, it depended on the job. I can't remember what our average job size was back then, but yeah, an average job, probably a work week or less. Yeah.
Okay, so let's just
Um,
for easy math, it's a work week. So you're spending 40 hours a week on site for one job. Once you made the switch to subcontractors, how much time would you spend on a job site per job?
yeah. Well, I learned processes of how to manage a job instead of babysitting and staying on a job and micromanaging a job. Um, so once I had a process for onboarding the first three jobs of subcontractors, and once I saw things going well, then there was a whole lot less time needed to be involved. And I'd say, depending on the complexity of the job, and the skill set of that team, I mean, stopping in, once in the morning and then maybe midday, maybe at the end of the day. If they were really good, maybe just a check-in in the morning, check-in of the day. So significantly less. I mean, you're talking, it just depends on how big the job was, but maybe an hour a day, maybe an hour or two, because the rest of the time of the day, once I learned to start subcontracting, was spent on doing more sales. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just and I'm more highlighting this for everybody else that this is a huge change for people. One of the biggest mistakes people make if you're stuck in that 200 to 400K a year is it's like I'm spending way too much time on site rather than hiring people to do a job for me. And in your case, it was 8 hours a day for a job down to 1 or 2 hours a day for a job. That gives you a lot more time. You could do twice as many jobs in less than half the time.
100%.
And that's like that's one of the first big unlocks. And just to underline what you said earlier, it's I realize that there's amazing subcontractors out there, just as
Amazing.
passionate. They own a business, they have families, they care.
Better than
How
I
many of
ever
those
was.
guys that you worked with back then still work with you today?
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, well, there's a couple. There's a couple. But not for reasons like most people would think, like, oh, I've realized like they messed up or something like that. Just, some of them moved away. Some of them decided to start their own business and do other things, but there are a couple of them that are still with me to this day. And they're my friends, good, solid guys. And they're better painters than I ever was. I want to add one more thing to 2020. For most of that year, I was managing the jobs, but then towards the end of that year, that's when I hired my first project or production manager, which was another humongous major shift in my freedom of my time and just the way the business ran.
Well, and you have to, because production starts to take up a lot of your time when you're producing $1 million a year.
Yep.
And so that's like the next step. Yeah, and one of the things we put together is just like a roadmap for like, this is how you did this, how we teach other people to do this, like step by step by step by step, from zero up to like 2 or 3 million a year. And that's the next step, is once you're hitting some of these bigger numbers, the project manager is the next big hire. So what beliefs were broken for you with that? What did you find out about yourself? Like, what impact did it make for you bringing on your first person?
It smashed the belief that, I can't hire good people, or I don't know how to run a business. I mean, at that point, when that started to happen, my confidence just shot up through the roof. It Not only that, but the opportunity that I gave that person, he was just so grateful for it, and he was really passionate about it, and he found out that he was really daggone good at it. So it was just amazing. It just really shifted it was just like another mindset shift, where I started to believe maybe I am cut out to run a business. And today, I feel that I totally am. I was meant for this. But at the time, I couldn't see it. But hiring that first production manager was just a major part of my growth.
That's awesome. All right, we'll just keep going, man.
Yeah.
So how have things progressed? Obviously, that was a huge shift,
Yeah.
right? The big shift was, wow, look at all this money and I'm earning now, but I'm not painting anymore. And then you hired the project manager, and I know your story, so I know where this goes. But what were the next big changes and big shifts over the next couple of years, leading up to where you're at now? Where you're at
Yeah.
now?
Yeah. Well, after I hired that project manager, things kept going good for a while, and that's when I hired a sales rep. And after I hired a sales rep, the next fear was, will he be able to sell as good as me? It was that same thing keep creeping back in. It's like, is he going to be able to do it as good as me? And, with the right coaching and the right processes and systems, I learned how to do a great onboarding process and what to look for in someone for a certain role. And, after I made that hire with that sales rep, it just created more leverage and more space for me to focus on other things in the business. So, you want me to fast forward to 2022? And
Any highlights along the way? So what did you, anything that's really relevant to share about your experience hiring and training a sales rep?
well, I could definitely talk about some of the pitfalls or some of the things that some of the some of the not rosy parts about that.
Let's save that at the end.
Okay.
We'll tell
Yeah.
all the pretty stuff,
Yeah.
and then we can dig into some of the big failures along the way,
Yeah.
because there's always plenty of those.
Yeah. Well, when I hired my first sales rep, it was again, I realized, okay, so my first sales rep I hired, he had more experience than me in outside sales. And it, it was again, like I just got the joy out of giving somebody else an opportunity to do something that they were great at. And it not only then gave me the confidence that like I can build a great business, and it also gave me the satisfaction that I'm helping other people fulfill the things that they want to do in their life. And it was just another major shift of like, wow, this is starting to become more than just about business. It's about helping people too. And so with that, in 2022, we ran that sales rep and that production manager, and then we went to hiring our first, our office manager. And in 2022, I mean, we had done a great year in 2021, and then in 2022 we had hit 2.2 million. So another major, just big growth the next year over. And
What was the net profit?
I have to look that back up for that one, but we've always been
Okay.
over 20% net. So for
Yeah,
2022, I think we did like
it would have been
400 and some
at
thousand.
least 450. Yeah,
Yeah.
at least
Well,
450. Um,
I'd look,
and that year, did you do that year in 2022? So you didn't manage any projects because you had project manager.
yeah.
Did you do any sales yourself?
I did. I had to do a little bit of the sales, but the majority of them were done by my sales rep. And we were gearing up to get ready to hire a second sales rep. So the only reason I had to do any at all was because we had so much business coming our way at that point, and I was getting ready to shift into hiring a second sales rep. So I was just kind of filling in some of the gaps at that point. We actually did hire a second sales rep who,
And you have an office manager at this point too, right? You had a
yes.
project manager, sales rep, office manager, second
So
sales rep.
yep. So 2022, we had project manager, sales rep, office manager, and I was already at the end of 2022. I was already starting to run ads for our second sales rep, and hired our second sales rep, and that went great for all of 2023. 2023, we had to hire quickly because both of them were performing well, so we hired a second project manager too. And so for 2023, we had two sales reps, two project managers, office manager. We also have a virtual office team. So a lot of things changing, running about 13 to 15 painting teams. And we produced about $3 million in gross and over 22% net profit. So close to almost 700K, very close to 700K in 2023 in net profit.
Yeah, which is
So,
incredible. So that was 2019 chaos, and then 2020. We call that, and I call that, like, you built a strong foundation.
yeah.
Because if you don't build a strong foundation, you don't build a team. But once you build a strong foundation, you need to build a team because the business is growing so much that you become the bottleneck. And that's what happened in 2020. And then once that happens, you're not in phase one anymore. That's what I call it, where you're doing it all. You're now in phase two, where your main job has now become, my job is to recruit, train, and build the team. And so 21, 22, and 23, you had, in 3 years, you hired and trained and put together this team of five plus your virtual office team.
Yep.
And so not a lot of, I mean, it's not a lot of changes. It's 21, bringing on, you've got two people, and then 22, another one or two. And so it's like this slow process, really, but the growth is anything but slow. So first of all, just congratulations.
Thanks, man.
Why don't you share a little bit about just lifestyle? Because that's what it's about for me. And I think that's what it's about for most people when they start their business is I'm in this to create freedom. You are in this to create a good life for your family, for your kids, for your wife, for yourself, so you're not run ragged and burned out. I know that's probably a pretty stark contrast to just 4 short years ago. But what is just your life like now? How has it impacted you personally, your family?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to say what you just said before that, how it was is not that long ago, and it wasn't that many things. I followed a program and I followed coaching, and I believed I wanted to make a change, and I just took it one step at a time, one good decision at a time, and I kept having successes, and so I just kept following proven steps. That's really all I did. I didn't try to stray from any process, and I had to overcome some limiting beliefs. And you asked me how things were for like my experience and my lifestyle. So in 2022 and in 2023, back to back years, we've been able to take like dream vacations. We've gone to Hawaii, we've gone to Kauai. Um, we planned to go to Maui last year. They had, the fires in Lahaina. So we just booked right back to Kauai. And so we went to Hawaii back to back years. I mean, I work on average, maybe if I even want to work that week, but I do still dab a lot in our business, but 10 to 15 hours on average. My life is so much more structured. I put things like, the time with my kids is first priority. As far as what I do with my team, it's really planned now, like one-on-ones with my teams, team meetings with my teams, because they've all learned to be good at their roles. And, just the feeling, the freedom of time, the financial freedom, being relaxed and happy, and all the things that I was chasing, like we'll ever have, a great house and cars, all those things just came. Being able to buy a car, being able to buy brand new cars, houses, wife's a realtor today. That's another dream of ours is just being able to invest in different real estate on top of just continuing to build and grow the painting business. Um, let's see, being able to, my daughter, being able to pay for her, I told you that in the beginning, being able to pay for her tuition in Chapel Hill this past year to help her in college. My son, being able to put him in just pretty much the best schools around here. That was a dream of mine. That was something that I felt that, hey, if I did that, that would be a fulfillment in my life. And I've been able to do that. Being able to take trips, I was able to send my son, my 5-year-old they went hiking. So real quick backstory. One more thing that inspired me, my wife, her brother, he overcame leukemia through, right at the beginning when I was trying to grow this business. And I mean, he was a fighter, and he got through that and overcame it. And that was another inspiration in my life. But he lives out in California. And this last year I was able to send my wife and my son out to the Sierras. They got a really cool place out there called Alabama Hills, and just got video and stuff of my son hiking at 5 years old through those places. Just amazing, man. And also being able to start to provide lifestyles that my employees here want, understanding what's important to them. What are some of their goals? What are some of the things that they want to accomplish? And just to be able to pass on the peace of mind that I have now and the freedom. It's just been amazing, to be able to have such a shift in my mindset and be able to do these things through business.
How has your motivation changed? Like I mean, at the beginning, it's like, oh my God, I just want to not work so much and make a little more money and spend a little bit of time. I mean, you far exceeded whatever that goal was in 2019. And then even in 2020, it was probably like you far exceeded that goal. But now that you're in the spot you're in, what motivates you now? Like what drives you now? Why do you show up to work now? What do you care about now? Because it's not more freedom. You pretty much got as much as you're gonna get. You could probably get a little more, but I think you're probably pretty happy with that. Making great money.
Yeah.
Always can make more, sure, but what interests you now with your
Yeah.
business and your motivations and your ambitions?
Mhm. Yeah. It's my life has taken a big shift from what I want for me to what I want for others. Um, every little things to big things. But it's all related to me. Like my son, seeing him achieve new things at school, or when he learns to climb a new little rock wall now. My employees, we get to do fun things now as a team. We got the Carolina Hurricanes hockey team out here. We do about 5 or 6 games per year as a team. If they make it to the finals, we'll go to some of those games. So seeing them find joy in that, and of course, helping them to achieve their goals in sales, or being able to produce certain things. Seeing the joy. My office manager last year, she had maternity leave, and she created this amazing playbook, for who would be stepping in temporarily while she's going to fill her role. And I mean, just SOPs for everything: how to run the CRM, how to schedule people, how to do this and that. And I was so proud of her to see that she had done that and she found fulfillment in that. And by the way, it really helped the team too when she took maternity leave. But all those things, and just seeing fulfillment in others, um, I think that's one of the biggest things that gives me joy today. Just seeing the fulfillment that I'm able to help other people with, and to help them, discover what they can find for themselves too.
I think what I think is amazing about business is when you have gotten to that. I mean, this is just a beautiful thing to get to where you're at, and everything you're saying now. I remember that, for me, like getting to that point where it's like, dude, this is about other people now, but that uh, is actually going to propel you even more. When that becomes the most important thing is your team and their success. Well, they're the ones who run your company now. I'm sure you're already seeing that,
Yeah.
with how this year's starting and where you're headed. But what are your goals? What are your goals from here? Do you have an idea of what direction you're trying to go next?
And can you be more specific?
Yeah, just
Business?
with Triangle, with your
Yeah.
painting company.
Yeah.
What's next?
Yeah. So building leaders here is my next goal. I want to give people opportunities to discover some of the things that I have, and to of course have other leaders to help run the team, in different departments of the team. We want to continue to just double down on the business, and just grow it and be helpful to people. Continue to have create amazing experiences for customers in our community, but also just create an awesome environment and culture for people to work and grow, not only in their business life here, but also in their personal life and any hobbies and things that they want to pursue. It's like the ultimate fulfillment, man. Being able to find things for yourself, but also to have the power and ability to help other people find those things for themselves.
Well, I think we talked, Brandon, about my. I don't think I'm special. I think I got lucky and fortunate a lot of different moments along the way. That's part of why I'm passionate about doing what I do, because I'm like, dude, I know where I came from. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not special. I had a few opportunities. I took them. Like, I took them. You took your opportunities and like fully embraced them. But I took those opportunities, but I was fortunate to get those opportunities. Good, good. And go figure. The worst timing ever for someone to go down the wrong pipe. So, um, if you could speak to someone who is in the kind of spot that I think there's a lot of, I mean, part of the reason I want to have you on is I think there's a lot of people who in this industry or even similar industries are in the position you were in 2019, or even before that, when you're like, man, you painted for 10 years before just going for it and you had it in you. Um, you could talk to those people and say, hey, these are really the things I did. Like, I'm not special. I did this and this and this, or maybe it's three things, maybe it's one. um yeah, what has contributed most to this incredible journey and growth over 4 years. I mean, it's life changing. If we could give that to everybody, we would. So, what's the best advice you could give to someone?
You know, I think people just have to be ready for a change and want it. There is a lot of help out there. Like for me, I had to get out of the mindset of like, I got to do this all myself. I got to do this the hard way, and got to just put in hard work. And um, for me, that was like the biggest mind shift of just saying, maybe it's possible there's something outside of the way that I've been doing things that could help me get where I want to go a lot faster and a lot easier and a lot less stressful. So I would just encourage anybody who is on the fence about it, or doing a lot of the work themselves, or maybe they just don't even know or think of it it's possible, um, to just take a risk, take a chance. That's what I had to do. I had to just have a mind shift and just take some different actions, make a decision that I don't want to stay stuck where I'm at right now, because what I've been doing has been giving me the exact same results over and over and over. So there's got to be another way. There's got to be another way. And however you get help, I mean, there's many ways to get help, but I would suggest try to find somebody who has experience and that has proven to do it over and over and over again. Um, I think that's the biggest thing for me. That was the biggest thing, is that I believed what I was. I believed in the people that said they had done it before me, and I wanted to change. I wanted something different than where I was at, and I was willing to go. I was willing to go through the pain of action and change more than I wanted to endure the pain of just staying the same. So I would just encourage people to just take a risk, take a chance, believe in yourself, take the right actions, stay committed, and see what happens.
And I want to inject a couple things, because I asked Brandon. I said, "Hey, this is not about Painting Business Pro. This is not about promoting Painting Business Pro, and so we don't want to make it about that." But I also, so Brandon's kind of been uh, not saying Painting Business Pro, but obviously we've worked together for like 4 years,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he's like, I agree with Brandon. There's a lot of different places that you can learn from people who've done things. I just hired a company today to help me do something that I haven't done before, but I try to do that all the time, and I know that that has been, from my observation, because I work with a lot of people, that that's a superpower of yours. And I don't know if we want to call it a superpower, because then it's like it's not accessible to people. But that's something that I know you did incredibly well, was like, all right, I'm just gonna do one thing at a time the right way. And that's all. I mean, that was so much of it. So I just,
Yeah.
um, you know, want to make
100%.
sure that that's clear for people because of its importance. Um, at the risk of sounding self-promotional, because I
Yeah.
don't want that. I don't want to take away. The intention of this is really just to share, like, guys, this is what is freaking possible. You've got it in you. You can do it. This is an incredible story. And even if you achieved this, and it took you 6 years or 7 years, or you achieved half of this, it would be life changing.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it was what you said. It was that simple. And then along the way, you discovered who you really are and what you're actually capable of, which is
Absolutely.
might
Absolutely.
be that might be one of the best parts.
Yeah. 100%. I think anything's possible if only you believe and just take the right actions. Um, and it's worth the risk. It's worth the risk to change. And um, for me, that was the biggest thing, is just making a decision that I wanted to change, and taking the different actions. And once you start seeing some results, once things start working, then it's just focus on the next thing, one thing at a time. That's another piece of advice I just give people, is I really just trying to get good at one thing at a time. And that's hard when you start growing a business, because you have different moving pieces. But that's where good coaching comes in, and having processes and all that. But being able to focus and hone in on one thing at a time has really helped me to avoid some mistakes. And there's been some mistakes, but I don't really look at mistakes as failures anymore. I look at them as opportunities to learn from things. And so the whole mind shift has changed the more that that one thing I'm working on works. And did we want to talk about mistakes at the end? I couldn't remember. Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
where I was gonna. I was just about to be like, all right, great guys. So that's Brandon's successes. Now, I have had my fair share of brutal, painful failures over the years, and that's. I think that's an important part of the story because it's not all rosy. In fact, I mean, the results are great, but it doesn't feel like that all the time. Like
Yeah.
there probably wasn't a point where you felt like this explosive growth. It probably mostly felt like you were failing the whole time, even when you were succeeding, because that's kind of how success often feels. Is it feels like I'm just failing the whole time because
It feels messy.
you are.
It feels messy sometimes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Um,
yeah, what are some of the big failures and corresponding like learning lessons along the way? Um,
yeah, there's been a lot, but I wouldn't say there's not anything that I couldn't have that I could never bounce back from. Um, and I want to say like the mistakes I'm about to mention, like because I had taken right actions beforehand and I'd seen things work and I'd had some success with that, my mind had already kind of shifted to, okay, well, this is something that went really wrong, and to just focus on what did I learn from that and what's the solution going forward. But I'd say two of the biggest failures along the way were probably production management mistakes. Um, Particularly, one of my production managers has just when I first hired him as my first PM, he was just really hard on himself. If something didn't go right or a customer was really upset, um, and we had some situations where maybe some painters got some stuff on something they shouldn't have, so some precious plants for somebody, or you know um, expensive deck, or something that wasn't supposed to get painted. So I've had situations like that where, oh man, like we're going to lose a lot of profit on this. And what I learned through those things was like, I just need to try to really take care of people instead of just worrying about money and profit. Like if I just keep doing good work and I keep trying to take care of people, like money's going to take care of itself. So what we did with what I did with that, my main PM, was I just really just went into coaching him of like, okay, listen, that happened. It was actually a time when he had like 3 or 4 things going on. And I realized like, okay, there's a common thread here. Like we're not managing our time right, or we're not setting the right expectations, or we're just not managing these situations with clients right. So I said, look, let's just take a step back. Like you're awesome, man. Like you're killing it out here. You've been doing a great job. Like don't beat yourself up. And so we went into a couple SOPs that we have, procedures that we have in our training, which is basically handling handling customer complaints and completely resolving an unsatisfied client with the client and with the subcontractor. And I just really went in deep with him about those things, and got him to. It's taken some time, but man, today, like if anything comes up, like he just looks straight for the solution. Like no big deal, it's all good. This is what we're going to do. Come up with an action plan. Here's what you can hear back from me. And using powerful phrases with customers. That's unacceptable, or that's not what you signed up for. That's not what you paid for. I'd be upset too if that happened. And so we've just really embodied those processes. And since he started doing those things, there's a whole lot less of that. And he feels really fulfilled. And he really feels like this is the position for him. And it's just been amazing to see that. So I think that we learn a lot of the time when we go through failures. We don't really learn when things are just going smooth and hunky-dory. We learn when things kind of go sideways. And that's why a lot of the times when you have a lot of massive growth, you feel like it's like a lot of mess and chaos happening. At least that's been my experience with that. Another one that
what about
we've
last
had,
summer?
yeah,
So let me ask you. I have a question. So what about last summer? So last year, 2023 was this killer year. Did three million in business, made great money. Took all these trips. But I remember talking to you last summer,
yeah,
and I remember you hired a project manager that didn't turn out.
yep,
That
oh
threw a
yeah,
little bit of a curveball at you. And then you had like boatloads of work to produce and your sales
Yeah.
team smashing sales numbers, but not enough hands to produce. And your office manager is going on maternity leave. And it was like the world was, I don't really know how that all turned out, but I think
Yeah.
that
Let's
might
talk
be a
about it.
worthy story.
Let's talk about it. So another thing that I've had in challenges is, I mean, that's one of the biggest challenges in business is hiring and growing a team. My first production manager I ever hired before the first one that worked out. He didn't work out. Like my first one, he was, and I've gone through a couple of these people like this, but he would not show up to the project. Like the main thing you need to do, he didn't show up on time to the project. So I've been through a couple of things like that with hiring people. But last year, you're right. Like I hired one project manager, and the first guy, he didn't work out. Like he was perfect for the role, at least on paper, and his references checked out. And he had even good reviews for the last company he worked for. But the guy had an underlying issue that hadn't resurfaced for years. I'll just be honest, it was drinking, and he went on a bender. Like when we were like through training, and he already had projects going, he just was like missing for a few days. So I was
With
really,
your
really
company truck, right?
with the company vehicle. Yeah, 'cause my employees have company vehicles, wrap vehicles, and so he went missing, and that was really challenging. That was let's see, that was early last year or into Q1, something like that last year. And yeah, so that was right in the middle of like, we're super busy. I mean, we had our biggest sales month last year in March, and I think it messed up with him like right after that. So yeah, so we had to get the car back. We had to go through that whole thing, and had to hire another production manager. But I've learned to just take things in stride. Like when that happened, I just looked for the solution to it. And I was like, okay, got to get right back into finding another production manager because my guys are selling a lot of jobs and this is the next thing we got to do. So I just focused on that until we hired another guy. And the next guy we hired was awesome. Jake, he's our second PM now. He came from a really high level countertop company, and he used to work for Sherwin-Williams, so it just worked out really good with him, and he's with us today. Actually, me and Jake are actually another cool thing. Me and him are going to the Masters this year, so we're going to do that together.
Oh, he's going with you.
Huh?
I didn't know he was going with you. That's
Yeah,
sweet.
yeah. Jake's going to go with me. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that was
Well, I
something
think
we had to overcome.
there's two important lessons here. Number one, problems happen and they all are going to happen. I mean, we could do two more of these just talking about problems and issues and houses you screwed up and employee problems and issues and we could just go on, right? And so they're going to happen, and it's not really a problem. Like you adapt, like you still have an impeccable reputation, impeccable reviews, you still have a great team. Like, so I think the first lesson is that people don't take action because they're afraid that something bad is going to happen. But the things that are going to happen, there are bad things that are going to happen, and it's going to be okay. That's the first important lesson. And then the second is the longer you're in this, the less you're impacted by problems. I can just say like my problems only are bigger and more expensive than ever, but they impact me even less from a personal like stress level, anxiety level. Like they don't throw us off. Like it's just talking about in stride. You just keep getting better and better at that over time, which is part of like the superpower you're developing and who you're becoming. So, if you had to move across the country or something, like you've got the skill set where you would go and you just rebuild, you do this again.
Yeah,
You just do it again because it's who you've become, the skills you've developed. And like, that's where that might be the most valuable thing is it's who you've become in the process that is like truly life-changing,
100%.
and all the results and all that. That's great too. But also just the confidence and peace of mind to know like, I've got this, I can do it again. And that's, you can't put a price on that. You can't put a value on that. You can't even imagine it's more than you would have imagined 4 years ago ever having, which I think is the most inspiring thing.
100%.
How fast it can change and how much more you are capable of than you realize. And that's not me to Brandon. That's me to whoever's listening.
Definitely. Definitely. People are capable a whole lot more than we give ourselves credit for. Sometimes we just need a little guidance, and we just need to take some risk and take some different actions.
Yeah. All right, man. Any closing words?
Just super honored to be on here and to be able to share my experience. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate everything, Eric. And like I said, one more cool thing we're doing this year is we get to go to the Masters. So really looking forward to that. Yeah, hope everybody got something out of this, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yep. One thing that we've got put together is I hope you guys enjoyed listening to this. I love Brandon. Appreciate Brandon. He's an amazing dude. Grateful that you would come on and share. And I hope it inspires some people and just like lights that fire under you to go after it in life. You've only got one life. So if you want some resources, we've put together a fast growth roadmap. This is basically the checklist that we put together for all of our members and anybody. Like, this is the step-by-step process to go from $0 to $2 or $3 million a year as quick as possible. It's got all the things we'd measure in a business, so you can kind of score your business against what your numbers should be. It's got building a strategic plan. We've got a lot of good stuff put together. So that resource is free. It's either under the video or in our bio or whatever. You can find that. If you can't find it, just email us and we'll send it over to you for free. And that should help you out and give you kind of an idea. You'll literally see Brandon's story in there of like, oh yeah, I heard that on the podcast. That was the step by step to building a business. So hope that's helpful to you, and hope you got a lot out of just listening to this. And that's it. Brandon, talk to you soon. Thanks again. Hope you guys enjoyed the combo. Hey guys, thanks for listening to the show. I hope you found it valuable. We make these episodes in the show for you, truly. So your feedback is super valuable to us, whether it's, things you liked, things you didn't like, what you want to see more of, what you want to see less of. Any feedback you can give us is going to be super helpful as we continue to evolve and improve the show over time. And if you want a copy of the Fast Growth Roadmap for Painting Contractors, which really simplifies the steps you take to building a business, we've got that resource for free for you. Just check the description or the bio where you're watching or listening to this episode, and you can just click and download that for free, and it should help give you a good roadmap for how to build and scale your business like the people that you're listening to on the show. So thanks for listening in. We'll see you soon.